So in a single heartbeat, we were surrounded by fire. The trees went up both sides of the little road I was on. I say we, it was me and my neighbor, ran back to our vehicles, got into our vehicles, and just hightailed it out of there, right through flames on both sides of the road, straight up the mountain. Now, going up the mountain was going against the wind. So the wind was all supposedly blowing the fire below us down towards the ocean. But it didn't. The fire would not stop coming up the hill and chasing us, going against the wind. It would wait a second until the wind subsided, and then the fire would just go grab all that fuel that hadn't burned yet above it, and just kept going up and up and up and climbing and racing and running at us and crawling towards us, spinning in tornadoes and hurricanes at us. I mean, it was a true hellscape, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I wish I'd taken more photos, but you're not thinking about that when you're trying to save your life, save other people's lives, thinking about all your property, everything else, your dogs. So we got way up high above. There's a fire station up there in the mountains, and we got up there and figured we were safe there, and we watched the whole valley below, all the valleys burning. And then my neighbor started sleeping in his car because we were exhausted, of course, and maybe it's like, I don't know, 3 a.m. by now. And I finally closed my eyes after sitting there right next to the fire station for a couple hours, and I did not go to sleep. I opened them up again, and both mountains on either side of us were now consumed in flames. And it had totally consumed the fire station. Had not gone into the fire station, but it had surrounded the fire station. And I came over and barely woke my neighbor up, banged on the glass on his car, got him up. He takes one look. He doesn't even look scared. He just looked pissed. He goes, "Oh shit." And so we had to fly further up the mountain. It chased us up there too. It just kept chasing us, these swirling hurricanes of fire. It would sort of lull us into a false sense of security by being kind of stable and being driven down away from us towards the ocean for, let's say, an hour or two. Then all it would take is the slightest shift, or even the wind just letting up for a few seconds, and suddenly, boom, it had grabbed another whole mountain and was coming at us. My neighbor eventually had enough, went over the mountain, went down through the blockade and into the suburbs to go be with his family. I did not want to go through the blockade because I knew they wouldn't let me back in, and I needed to get to my home after the fires passed to try to put the embers out. And in these apocalyptic moments, the same thing with after a hurricane, you just see the most surreal things. I'm going down the mountain at 5:30 a.m. and it's not even dawn yet, and there's just suddenly two horses in front of me. I'm all alone. There's no other person for miles that I can see. And then I realize the horses are hitched up to a super old Toyota SUV that's rolling down the hill. And it's got these two horses by the rope, and they're just trotting on along through the night down the mountain. And so I passed them. I went down and spent the night in relative safety at the very, very bottom of the mountain. I say spent the night. It was, I got about 30 minutes of sleep from 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then I went back up the mountain to the ridge line, where on one side the mountains descend into the valley, into the San Fernando Valley, and the other side they descend down to the ocean. And the side they were descending down to the ocean, the fire was still creeping up towards us. That's Gene Simmons' house right there on the right that they saved. The one on the left went up pretty quick. This dude, holy moly, he was like a volunteer firefighter, already had a neck brace on. And the flames came. He's standing on the ridge there on the highest points above the ocean and of the whole mountain range. And the fire just comes whooshing right up over all the fuel right next to us. The flames, none of these pictures do it any justice. I mean, the flames were 20, 30 feet high and just went soaring right over us. We all ran like hell. He stands there, takes his phone out and goes, "Hey, Siri." I fucking lost it laughing even while I was running for my life. I turned back around and he's snapping photos while he is basically in the fire. Anyway, it got too hairy even for that maniac, and it just, the whole sky was full of smoke. Everything down between the top of that mountain down to the ocean, which is miles and miles away, is just totally consumed in an inferno. At last, the flames went from everything that I could see, and it was just covered in smoke, and you couldn't see anything. I thought, this is my chance. I'm going to try it. I felt more afraid for the two dogs I had in my back seat than I did myself. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And I hightailed it down the road, down the mountain, through the smoke, through, flaming buildings on the other side of the road. What would happen with the telephone poles, they would catch fire at the bottom and then fall over, onto you or into the road or whatever. So I was driving through those and dodging those, and, a lot of debris. Luckily, I've got a pickup truck with decent tires, and a lot of debris in the road, and rocks were falling everywhere because there was nothing to hold the hills together anymore. Once that root system is gone, all those plants, those trees were holding the hills together, so they just started falling and crumbling. And I got down about, I don't know, maybe a mile above the fire station, and now there was like 8 telephone poles had fallen into the road with the big cables and, electric lines and all the rest. And electricity was off, but they were completely blocking the road. And some of them were on fire, of course. And so I got my dogs out, and just, we wove our way through all those telephone poles. And sure enough, I came to that spot where my neighbor had been sleeping the night before in his car, when I ran up and banged and banged and banged on his window and shouted until he finally woke up, and I got him out of there. And it was a good thing, because now I saw that a telephone pole had crashed into that spot over the night, and the fire had taken, both sides of the road there. So it's a good thing we got out. It's one time in my life I'm thankful that I'm an extraordinarily light sleeper. I think back in caveman days, I would have been that dude who sleeps at the mouth of the cave that warns everybody, hey, a saber-toothed tiger's coming in here. Get up. We got to get out of here, because a lot of buddies I have would be like, I don't know, they'd be like half eaten by a saber-toothed tiger before they woke up. Wound up there at the fire station, and the firemen could not have been more nice. They were, just heartbroken that there wasn't much they could have done about the fire, because it was so insane with the wind and everything. And I sheltered there for a little bit. They gave me some beef jerky. There was a few people from the adjoining neighborhood who were there also. I met one lady who had managed to rescue her 2 peacocks. She did not manage to rescue her son. He died a few hours before I met her there. So we spent some time together, and eventually one of the firefighters kind of gave me a little wink that it was okay to try to walk down to my property. So I took my 2 dogs, and we were all alone and walking down the mountain on this road, and took a couple hours. Step after step on that journey down the mountain, I was just blown away by what the fire took and what it did not, and how there would be a house sitting there just fine, perfectly clean, car in the driveway, and right next to it, feet away from it, would be a home whose very existence had been revoked. There's no other way to put it. Just a smoldering hole in the ground. Houses on fire, and they were just groaning and screaming and creaking and cracking, and the bangs that would come out of them while they were on fire. But, really, I don't know, I felt like it wasn't the time to take pictures. And I remember just getting down to my valley. I had no idea if I still had a home. And looking into my valley and just seeing this smoldering lunar landscape. And then walking down into it and realizing I was about to round the corner and see if I still had a home in this world.